Hello and happy Tuesday. My name's Heather. This is Sage and Stone Homestead, and this tromboncino squash is absolutely well towering above my head. I swear these things grow several inches in one day, and my husband Levi actually came in here yesterday to help me string up the trellis for these squash. The idea is that each squash will put out some side shoots and the whole plant will actually come and make a really nice tunnel here in the greenhouse. There's a couple plants that actually have a week or so head start on the others, but some of the plants that I put in last are absolutely catching up. And so far, I haven't noticed any squash bugs or squash vine borers. Knock on wood. I hope that they don't discover these squash. So you're going to be noticing a little bit of a different chorus than usual in the background of this particular garden tour. And that's because I've switched out the goats that are in this back pasture. We've started our breeding groups for our La Manchas. And I'm not your girl. She went that way. So if it sounds a little bit different in the background, that's why. I have noticed that some of the female flowers that initially came on this plant are starting to shrivel up, and probably they're going to fall off within the next couple days. It's pretty common for some of the first potential fruits to shrivel up and fall off. It takes a little while for the male flowers and the female flowers to be synchronized in their blooming, and I actually haven't even seen any male flowers blooming yet. Normally they will bloom first and then the female flowers, but because they haven't really been blooming at all at this point, there hasn't been any pollination at all, so no fruit. This female flower though, this one looks really promising. But so far, I don't think it's had the chance to open. And this is an example of what's going to be a male flower. You can tell that it's just stem and there's no baby fruit. Up here on the female flower, the whole stem is basically a baby version of the fruit that will be. There is a chance that I'm going to have to hand pollinate. I do get plenty of pollinators in here, but it may not be enough to properly pollinate the tromboncino squash. So I'm going to be getting up early over the next week or so and trying to see if any of the squash blossoms are open, and I may hand pollinate them. That's kind of the trick with squash. Oftentimes their blooms are only open for a couple hours in the very early morning, so I've got to keep my eye out for that. It's a little bit hard to see unless I get up close, but there's quite a few bees on these marigolds in here. And that was the whole point of planting the marigolds on the edge of the greenhouse, to draw in the pollinators with that pop of color, and it seems to be working. Marigolds are also known to be a pretty decent deterrent of many pests in the garden, and I can say that could be true as well. This is our first year growing over the summer in the greenhouse, so it's really hard for me to judge. Sometimes it takes a year or so for the pests to really discover where the garden is and to continue to come back, but so far, so good in here. So with the summer garden gradually coming to a close and the fall and winter garden gradually getting bigger and bigger in their cell trays, I do have to start planning and making some decisions for the greenhouse. So today we're going to be harvesting as many peppers as we can. I'm going to have another week of pepper preservation. That's always a fun time. In general, I think in our area, we're growing in southwestern Kentucky, zone 7B. I think that if I wanted to, I could get another or a third harvest out of these peppers. Oftentimes peppers will put on an initial flush of blooms. Those blooms will take around 6 to 8 weeks to mature into the fruit that we love to pick and love to eat. And then right around the time that that fruit is starting to mature, you're going to get another succession of blooms. And in hotter climates like where we're at, and especially under cover of a greenhouse, a lot of places can get a third succession of bloom and fruit. I'm just not sure that I have the ability to sacrifice this space for that amount of time, because I am going to have to put my fall and winter starts in here in around 6 weeks. So I also need time to be able to amend this area, add in my fertilizers and my manure and all of that. So I think this may be the last major pepper harvest that I have this year. I have quite a few peppers, so I'm sure I'll be able to leave a couple here and there, and that'll be fun to see how long they can last into our freezes being in the greenhouse. I'm not sure if you're hearing it happen, but as I'm lifting up on these plants, a lot of them are kind of snapping just from the weight and being handled this late in the season. So I didn't trellis these peppers at all, and they probably could have stood to be trellised. They probably would be healthier, and they probably wouldn't be as prone to breaking. But given as these plants aren't due to be in here that much longer, a little breakage doesn't break my heart. See, this whole branch snapped off, but it's got quite a lot of fruit on here. Of course. I was just trying to show you how beautiful it is.
Just feel the wind. If you look close, you see the lilies dance and how they slowly grow. I'm counting years as they go by. Now all the lilies gone and aces brought to life. 'Cause at times I think I'm leaving, my mind takes me back to fall, when the snow begins to sing goodnight to all.
So you can see here that some of the peppers in this bucket are orange or red. And actually the green peppers and the red peppers in the greenhouse here are actually coming off of the same plant. You can buy seed for red peppers, yellow peppers, purple peppers, lots of different colors, but in general, your regular old green peppers, when they stay on the plant long enough, they do mature to red. Oftentimes that's why the colored peppers are a little bit more expensive at the grocery store, because you can harvest these weeks before you can harvest these. I'm not even done harvesting from this row, and I'm obviously overflowing my tote, so I need to go find something else. So this is another reason to trellis your plants. Oftentimes when the fruit touches the ground, it can not only contact the moisture of the ground and have a hard time staying nice and clean. Usually the bugs that are on the ground will find that fruit before you do. Come here, girls. No, you have yours, Gertrude. We got a lot of sweet bell peppers off of the plants today. That was way more than I expected to get, but these are good problems. So instead of harvesting every pepper that I have in the greenhouse right now, today I've decided that I'm only going to focus on sweet peppers. So I have the bell peppers that we already harvested. I have these really cool looking candy cane sweet peppers. I'm growing a heatless jalapeno, and that's what this is right here. And right next door to it, we have a heatless habanero. And it's not entirely heatless. There is a tiny kick to it, but even if you don't like heat, I really think you're gonna love these. We actually had a friend over this week for dinner and he got to try some of these heatless habaneros, but before he tasted one, he did wonder out loud, why would anybody grow a habanero if not for the heat? And I think that maybe the habanero is so hot that it's a little bit hard to tell that it has a really awesome fruity flavor. I've never tasted a pepper as great tasting as these. Surprisingly fruity. It's very, very hard to describe. If you get the chance, put these in your garden next year. They start out this really creamy yellow color. They stay this color for quite a while, but then they mature to this dark orange, beautiful color, and they taste good at all stages. This here is the candy cane sweet pepper, and they stay this really neat green and yellow stripe for quite a while before they also mature to a deeper orangey red color. And you can still see the striping even when they get this mature. These are gorgeous. I'm gonna try to grow these every year as well. And these truly have zero heat to them. These are basically a lunchbox pepper. I think some of these candy cane sweet peppers I am going to leave on the plant is because I like to come out and pick them fresh for our lunches, and if I pick them now, they're not going to last as long inside on the counter as they will out here on the plant. So if you have the opportunity just to use your garden as a pantry, sometimes that's the best way to keep things. They're going to stay fresher longer on the plant versus off of the plant. Now that's not true for everything. I find it to be true for things like peppers and potatoes, sweet potatoes included. But some things like cucumbers and tomatoes, they're going to get overripe pretty quickly, so those things you're going to want to pick. These here are the heatless jalapenos. They look identical to jalapeno, except for they have 0% heat. I have eaten these fresh, and I do continue to eat them fresh a little bit, but I find that they almost taste a little bit like soap when they're eaten raw. My favorite thing to do is actually to cook them, saute them right in a pan, and add them to some dishes that could use that jalapeno flavor without the heat. And these guys also mature to a nice red. Did you guys see that wasp? So the wasps have been pretty prolific in our garden and greenhouse this year, and in general, as long as they don't bother me, I don't bother them, because believe it or not, wasps can be very beneficial to the garden. They don't only pollinate, but they actually feed their young, small grub and larvae, and they can come through and pick off some of the pests that may bother your plants. Lots of different caterpillars, and they'll just pick them off and carry them away. And essentially they're like an organic pest control that you didn't have to buy and that you don't really have to manage. So in general, I like to leave them, but they're not my favorite thing, especially as it comes down into fall. The wasps and things can get much, much more aggressive, and so hopefully I don't get stung. So this is our haul today of sweet peppers. It's not as big as our first haul of peppers, but that's completely okay. Really, that first haul that I had was more than enough peppers for us to put away and preserve until next year, and so all of this is a really amazing bonus. I'm going to place a video up here of the last time I harvested peppers and all of the ways that we preserved them. There's cowboy candy, we diced and froze some, and we also pickled some peppers. So go ahead and click that for some inspiration, and I'll see you in the garden next week.